Thank you very much for listening to That Will Never Work podcast. Today, we're going to talk about some unresolved emotional traumas. And I have an individual that we're going to talk to today who has, on her journey, has some transformational and moments of resilience shaped by over a decade of helping business owners and leaders tackle some of their most pressing challenges, just like herself. And years ago, she faced the struggle of growing her own business while wrestling with fears and uncertainties that held her back. And it was through confronting those internal barriers that she discovered her true calling, empowering others to navigate similar challenges. I bring none other to you to the stage today, but wait one moment. You'll hear her right after this.
Educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Never Work, an award-winning podcast where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here's your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
Thank you. I bring to you Denise G. Lee. Thank you very much for coming on to the show.
Maurice, it's been just such a pleasure. Obviously, our interact even before we hit this the stage and just all the conversations we've had. So thank you so much. The pleasure's all mine.
Oh, sure, no problem, man. Thank you for being patient. I've been through some illnesses, and it's been really, really crazy. Life has taken some challenges, right? So I thank you for being patient and being able to come on today. And we'll jump right into it because I just stated how I had to go through some things to get to this point, right? For us to have this conversation. You had to go through some things to get to this point for us to have this conversation. Overall, what would you say was something that you had to overcome to get to this stage in your life? Just maybe one or two scenarios.
Well, if I may, before I answer that question, I just want to give you honor to getting over long COVID and
Mhm.
all the stuff that has transpired for that, and then obviously wrestling your business needs, your family needs, and all that other stuff. And I
Right.
think a lot of people don't realize like what an impact health has on running your business
Mm-hmm.
and trying to meet commitments, trying to make sure that you're holding up to your own standard, but
Right.
health is saying, hold my beer to you. So I want the reason why I'm mentioning this before I get
Right.
to my own junk, right, is
Mm-hmm.
to honor the fact that you're showing up, you're being present, and despite of all the stuff that you had going on, and you still held your commitments. That is what a business owner with integrity does. So
Mm-hmm.
I just want to honor you, and for people who are understanding that showing up when you feel sick, showing up and committing stuff when you don't owe anyone nothing shows
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
integrity. So I just want to put that one out there.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, look, here's the thing. I'm going to be very honest with folk
Mhm.
that my journey is I'm a recovering asshole. For so many years, I did not show up. Forget about other people.
Mm-hmm.
I showed up for, I didn't even show up for myself, being
Mm-hmm.
clear about what I needed to do, not necessarily to get awards or clients or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
showing up for the sake of I'm designed to do something that makes a difference beyond just earning a paycheck.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a whole lot to unpack, but that came through so many situations where I was humiliated, humbled, ridiculed, ignored, ghosted, dismissed. And a
Wow.
lot of people don't want to hear that because we live in a culture that says you need to be healthy, wealthy, and sexy. And if anyone doesn't get it, show them to the door.
Right.
Well, we all can't say to the left. Like sometimes we have to be in the middle, just dealing with it.
Right. There's something that you stated from the very beginning where you're recovering, right? A lot of us can't even acknowledge that we were even in that space. A lot of us can't acknowledge that that's who we were. That's what our life might have been, where we might not have been attractive to someone else. The things that we see in magazines and social media, you have to fit a certain mold, and sometimes we rebel against that and people label us right? So now you got to figure out who you are, and you might not be so desiring, you know, and for a position. You might not be so desiring for that interview or whatever it is. So how have you been able to maneuver in that? As you say, you're recovering, right? So how have you been able to maneuver in that and stay truly to who Denise really is?
Honestly, Maurice, I don't even know who Denise really is. It's an evolution. The more I'm
Mm-hmm.
being honest with myself, the more I'm being confronted with situations that make me confront what my perceived reality is, makes me more attuned to who Denise is. And that will always be evolving.
Mm-hmm.
But to answer your question about recovery, I'm a recovering addict. I'm a recovering sex addict. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I've been sober from alcohol about 8 years. I've been sober from the sex addiction off and on for 15 years. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm never really clean and dry because it's very common in the addiction recovery circles that says your addicts outside doing push-ups, waiting for the main event to get back into the swing of
Mm-hmm.
things. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to sit here and say, well, I'm all fine and clean. I'll never have a relapse and I'm going to be beautiful and wonderful. That's
Mm-hmm.
not what it is. What it is every moment, every day am I showing up, understanding the fact that if I let my thoughts go to pity,
Mm-hmm.
praise, so
Mm-hmm.
just like like deflecting from feedback from others, I'm basically inviting myself back to self-destruction, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not easy to say because we live in a world that says if you pay enough, if you fight enough, you can create enough content, you can insulate yourself from, forget about reality, but
Mm-hmm.
from
Mm-hmm.
yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
I think honestly, people who are wanting to really show up and really make a difference forget the missing part is themselves in the picture.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
And so for me, my journey, not just as a business owner, as a leader, is how can I continue to still showing up for myself? Because if I don't, I will succumb to back to those things that represented the dark side of me. They still exist, but who am I leaning more into? My light or my dark in me?
Hmm. So as I'm listening to you, I am reminded of my father. He is a Vietnam War vet. He had come home and he was, um, as you just stated, addicted to name it. He was addicted to it, and he was. I recall being a kid, watching him shoot up in the bathroom. I recall him physically assaulting my mother very violently. I remember some other moments or whatever, and he's been getting some help over the years, in and out of my life. I didn't see him for almost 20 years of my life at one point in time. And most recently, he said to me that with him being an addict, um, that it wasn't always the drug itself. It was the exhilaration of how to get to that point. So whether he had to rob somebody, whether it was him having to just do some really, really wild things. So he was addicted to the exhilaration that um I don't even know how to put it. Because I had gone to some therapy sessions with him. His therapist or counselor had asked me to come with him because we was trying to repair our relationship. And so I'm listening to you, and it's reminding me of all the things he had to get to, even for where he is today. Where he's remarried. He just retired from the government, working for the government over 10 years now. Well, like I said, he just retired. And so he bought a house. So all these things that he was missing out as I was growing up or whatever it is, as you say, he's always evolving. He did have a relapse real quick a couple years ago, getting back on alcohol, and he had to have brain surgery. So it's been some ups and downs. And so as you're stating, some of those things is really hard to manage and deal with depending on whatever else is going on in your life. And that's why, I think it's important for us to understand some of our why. Why, what is our purpose, and how to stay and show up for ourselves every day. I'm sorry, I'm listening to what you're saying. That's as I'm talking to him, and I'm hearing what he's saying to me and what he has to do to get to another level and just kind of stay where he is. It's really about showing up and remembering who he is and what his mom used to say to him as a kid. hey, Warren, you are powerful. Warren, you mean something. You are important. So yes, I'm listening to what you're saying. I'm sorry, it's kind of reminding me of a few little things that I've been through in my own life.
I just want people who are understanding that if you have a loved one that was supposed to be a caretaker to you, they were supposed to be able to model and shepherd and lead and guide you, and they're only doing is modeling is dysfunction, confusion, and chaos. It makes you really question what normalcy is. It really
Hmm.
makes you question what stability is. It makes you question whether what it is to show for people how it is to live a functional life.
Right.
And if all of that is shattered, it distorts your idea of stability, not in just your personal life, but your business. And inevitably, you will try to recreate subconsciously that same dysfunction.
Hmm.
And that is so hard
Hmm.
for a loved one to watch. And like you don't have anybody around you saying, look, your daddy had a lot of issues from the war. He had a lot of
Right.
issues trying to reconcile with his lady. He had a lot of issues trying to figure out how to get back into America after seeing stuff that no human being should be exposed to. And
Right.
so there was and the healthcare system, the military healthcare system is broken. That's a whole different podcast to
Right.
talk
Right.
about
Right.
within
Right.
itself. And to sit here and say, like, dang, like I see my dad evolving, and this is what I saw was manhood's model for me.
Hmm.
Wait a minute, snap. Is this how like every man is supposed to be?
Hmm.
And it makes you question what that looks like. And it takes a lot of big old ugly tears and conversations with other men who have walked the walk about, okay, yes, I have been broken. Yes, this world's broken, but this is what it looks like to show up for yourself. And you
Hmm.
can't do that in isolation. I know it's a little
Hmm.
off topic from what you asked, but I just really want
No.
to say that because I know that you mentor young men and they're listening to this and they might be in a situation where everything looks just crazy around them and
Hmm.
they're like, wait a minute, why should I continue showing up when everything around me looks backwards?
Right.
And I'm telling you right now, that's not the complete picture.
Hmm.
It's like me taking a glass, like a mirror, whatever, and breaking it and ask you to look at yourself. Of course, it's going like your director's going 5,000 somewhere. But
Hmm.
trust me, we're not going to try to repair and glue it together. Let me walk you and see what original, well-made piece of glass or mirror looks like, and have you
Hmm.
look at that. A
Hmm.
lot of us are looking through trying to look at reality through a broken lens. I'm like,
Right.
no, baby, let's not look through that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think what you're saying is off topic at all because a lot of times we haven't gone backwards and dealt with which is one of your questions off of your pod match, dealing with the unresolved traumas that we have experienced. For me, it took me a very long time because it affected not just the way I looked at myself, self confidence, self esteem, all that type of stuff. But it made me review even how I looked at my mom, how I looked at my wife as I gotten older, how I wanted to deal with my kids. And then I realized that it really affected also how I did business, how I showed up, even trying to go back to school, be in college or whatever it might have been. It made me really step back and say to myself, like, hey, Maurice, we are going to get over this. But it's not like, as you're stating as well, it's about a community. I can't do it by myself. I have to be able to talk this stuff through. I have to be able to lean on my fellow brother or sister, whoever it might be, because I'm not the only one that's going through it. And so we have to
I'm,
kind of help each other out and pull each other through the mud and whatnot.
I'm just talking fictitiously. I don't know what exactly happened, but
Right.
let's say I'm going to give it a domestic violence situation. Okay,
Hmm.
so you're a young man, and you're viewing the husband, your dad, screaming and yelling, verbally abusive towards your mother
Hmm.
or the mother figure, right?
Hmm.
What does that do to a child whose brain's not fully cooked? When I say fully cooked, puberty doesn't end until 24, 25.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
the brain is still soft and malleable. And so basically, you're getting an impression that men that don't feel secure themselves need to retaliate through condemning, criticizing, demeaning language, right? And
Mhm.
so that you can go one of two ways with this. You can turn towards passive aggression and try to avoid all types of conflict directly, but make snide remarks. You can ghost on your commitment, or you can basically delay or procrastinate, or you
Mhm.
could be overtly aggressive and just literally match and mirror that aggression.
Right.
That doesn't stop with your mate. You could be aggressive again with your clients. If a client
Mhm.
doesn't tell you what you want to hear, you're just going to ignore those emails.
Mhm.
Or people that you're friends with, you could be literally retaliatory in terms of saying, "Oh yeah, I'll show up," but you don't.
Right.
So
Right.
it all started at home.
Mhm. Mhm. It did. And so you said something about puberty starting at 20, ending 24-ish or whatever. Now,
Mhm.
here's the thing though, Denise. Imagine seeing that you 2, 3, 4 years old. And so you're still like mommy, daddy, like you said, you're looking at these individuals who are trying to protect you, or that's what you're looking for protection, things like that. And that's the image, that you're seeing and that you're feeling. And as I said to you before the show, yes, I coach individuals. I've been coaching football, basketball for a while. So I get to see these not just young men, but I actually coach women's girls basketball as well. And so I've been able to hear these type of stories on both sides, if you will. This type of mindset is spread across, and not just. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's not just one ethnic group, one race. It's across many cultures. Unfortunately, we hear it in news that it seems like it's only one sided, but it's all the way across. So I'm glad that you were able to come on the show and really talk about this, because this does affect our bottom line, no matter what it is, whether we're trying to build our business or we're trying to get a promotion in our job. We don't understand what these traumas are that are holding us back.
There's a wonderful book by Dr. Norman Doidge. He wrote two books: The Brain That Changes Itself, The Brain That Heals Itself. But we have two hemispheres in our brain. Our left, with logical thinking, we've got our right feeling center. The first thing that develops in our brain as we're growing up, fresh out the womb, is our feeling center,
Hmm.
or our sensory center. And there's a reason behind that, because in the absence of developing like the ability to have a fully formed broker, your communication skills, you can only express through crying, yelling,
Hmm.
shuddering, and stuff like that. But what happens if your brain is flooded with stress hormones, norepinephrine, adrenaline? Your body is fully adrenalized to want to fight, flight. You're in full sympathetic nervous system response. And that's why you see a lot of young people, they just default to anger and
Hmm.
rage and throwing stuff. It's because literally they've been overstimulated on the right side of their brain.
Hmm.
So there's actually science that back this up. There's another wonderful book that talks about that. It's called Brainstorms by Dr. Siegel, Dan Siegel, I believe. And it talks about some of the tumultuousness that happens amongst adolescents that grow up in chaotic family structures.
Hmm. Wow. Denise, I mean, I don't know, we might have to have a part two to this, Denise. Uh, because this topic and this space probably is not spoken about very often. Everyone wants to talk about profits and this and that. I understand some of the things that helps out your organization you need to know, but this type of thing that we need to understand from an emotional perspective, like you said, what hemisphere or brain are we most dominant on? Um, and what those influences have been over our lives, how that truly has affected us in any and everything that we do. And sometimes we don't want to deal with it. We kind of hope that it's swept underneath the rug, or we mentally have put it in the closet. But we got to deal with it at some point in time. So how important is it for us to deal with it incrementally, at least?
Mhm.
How important is that?
I mean, I wouldn't be here, honestly, having a very honest, frank conversation had I not developed my emotional intelligence. Everybody wants to talk about, you're absolutely right, their profitability, their conversions. How do I make my copy speak better? Well, yeah, look, yeah. But if you're not able to sit alongside the discomfort of another person, how can you fully be able to serve their needs?
Right.
And that only comes from you being present with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And maybe, heck, you might make some money here and there, but
Right.
how will it last long term? Look, I remember, I'm old enough to remember a few days ago, Kanye West paraded his fully naked wife for all to see. And a few years ago, didn't he say that he was saved by Jesus? What happened? I'm
Right.
old enough to remember that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Now, how does someone who's talking about praising Jesus and wanting his wife covered up to having a fully nude woman representing him on stage? What happened? There was a breakdown in his emotional health that happened for him to compromise his values and integrity. Y'all can want to say it's about artistic artistry and pushing the boundaries, whatever. I basically seen someone compromise themselves on a spiritual and emotional level.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I totally agree.
You can't say one thing and then go back. So what happens then? You're going to associate with people that match and mirror your values. And then one day you're going to start hating yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I remember reading, same guy. So and I'm not mentioning this to be like a tell-all on this guy, but I'm just mentioning him from a point. I remember reading an article about when he was falling out with Adidas. And they said right before the fallout, he was going to meetings and showing videos of hardcore porn. Hey, look at this to ad executives in a business meeting.
Mm-hmm.
How far gone have you gone where you were so detached from the perception of other people to realize how inappropriate it was? So emotional health isn't just it just works with my partner in my personal life. It works everywhere.
Right. Wow. Denise.
Yo. I said we were gonna get spicy in this conversation. I told you.
Dang, Denise. Like I said, we're gonna have a part 2 to this, Denise. We really are. We really are. You know, and so for those individuals today that are struggling with their emotional intelligence, whether or not they're struggling with some of their emotional traumas and things that's unresolved and, you know, they put in a closet or whatever it might have been, and they need to talk to someone, a straight shooter like you, right? So where can they find you, Denise? Where they can get the real and not the sugar-coated, half-baked version. We need it done all the way.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the love. I mean, folk can go on my website, deniseglee.com. Just follow the fro, okay? Just follow the fro. And I have many articles, over 100 posts about these type of issues, just the way I'm talking with you, Maurice, about these stuff, because I was looking for someone just telling to me straight, because I was sick of my own stuff. And I hope like anything that you read from me can give you that clarity. And obviously that the site, you can also hook up with me professionally, if that's what your answer says, have to say that, or do take one of my courses or whatnot. So
Right.
That's that.
All right, cool. So Denise, before I let you go, 2 things. One, I have to say thank you for my counseling session today. And number two, before I let you go, I do have my world famous question. Denise, would you rather choose 3 doors or a fork in the road?
I like a fork in the road all the way.
And can you elaborate a little bit?
Well, if I'm going to own something, at least I'm going to own rejecting the other option.
Okay. Some people don't like that option. I mean, because that's accountability. People don't like accountability. Denise?
That's a different conversation.
But I thank you very much for coming on the show. And of course, all your information, Denise, will be in the show notes. So thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Sure, no problem. And thank you very much for listening to the That Will Nevr Work podcast. And I will talk to you a little later.
Thanks for listening. Follow Maurice Chism on social media to stay connected and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work. Or will it?